What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Verdependent podcast, where we depend on the Verde Black for our everyday vibes. With Open Cup back on the schedule this week, we're going to spend the first half quickly recapping both home draws against Atlanta and Vancouver before previewing the road trip to Allianz Field in Minnesota, and then preview the Open Cup round of 16 action with Glenn Davis in the second half before closing out the episode with a stoppage time rundown of the hottest Austin FC, MLS, and World Footy storylines of the past week. I'm Paul Fletes.
And I'm Logan Bartlett.
And G, we're over at 36 Spotify reviews now, which is 14 away from our goal of 50 reviews by the end of May. So I just want to say a quick, thank you to those who have already submitted their reviews. And if you haven't gotten yours in already, it's not too late to submit. And with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into some preheated takes. Lobar, go ahead and kick it off, man.
Let's do it, man. And I'm going to jump the gun here a little bit, looking ahead to the second half conversation on the Open Cup. And I'm going to call out that we advance on penalties on Wednesday.
Okay.
We're going to play the full
okay.
90, draw, or add a draw, go to extra time, end that at a draw. Who knows what kind of shenanigans will happen, MLS After Dark style. But then go to penalties and defeat Houston on penalties. This will be their second straight year defeated on penalties if we do that. And I think that would be very fun.
Dang, okay.
I like it.
I've also got a topical Open Cup preheated take, and that is that we are not going to rotate and have all three designated players starting against Houston Dynamo on Wednesday. Ludicrous, you might say, but I think Nico is, wanting to put the best 11 on the field game by game. And that means all three DPs.
Yeah. I would have thought the same thing. If you didn't already take it, I would have said it. So yeah, I think we have 2 months until the next Open Cup game if we move forward. So it's like, you can rest a game in MLS play knowing that you have 2 months to prepare for the next Open Cup matchup. So,
right. Yeah, I think a lot of folks are going to find out, where his priorities lie, on Wednesday. And so it's going to be really interesting to see that lineup drop. Or just how those tactics are going to work out in terms of, subbing in and out. But we'll get to more of that in the second half for sure. Let's go ahead and jump into the first half where, like we mentioned, because of the two games last week against Atlanta and Vancouver, we're just going to go ahead and kind of do a brief overview of those and then jump into the rest. But we had Austin hosting a struggling Atlanta United last week with Brandon Vasquez netting a beautiful free kick in the 55th minute, only to concede the equalizer in the dying seconds of stoppage time. With a quick 3-day turnaround, Austin welcomed top of the Western Conference Vancouver Whitecaps in what would be an intense performance for the home side that was unfortunate to only share a point with the visitors. Lobar, we've got notes on different aspects of these two matches, so why don't you go ahead and kick it off with the game against Atlanta?
Let's do it, man. Do chronological here. So going into this game, we were hoping for, if not expecting, a win, right? Atlanta is also, they're in worse form than we are, so far this season. I think they had 10 points coming into this game or something along those lines. Regardless, we expected some sort of positive result for the Verde Black. And this is, this would have been the game where we could have bagged that. We could have bagged 3 points, changed the momentum of our season going into this Open Cup matchup, going into, as we continue throughout the busy May schedule. Brandon Vasquez got a beauty of a goal. No complaints. I'll never have any complaints about a free kick goal, but it was worrying to see the trend continue of creating a lot of chances, getting a lot of shots, but maybe the quality of those shots in open play not being great and still not scoring from open play.
Agreed.
I think we had some criticisms, or we've had lots of criticisms of Nico's tactics so far this year. And I think the players are, I'd say, starting to gel a little bit more, right? Specifically the DPs, right? We're seeing more shots from Bukhari, seeing more shots from Mizuni in this game. I don't have the touches in front of me and I don't care to look it up, but I would imagine they were a little bit better. It seemed that was the vibe coming out of where we're getting the ball to our playmakers a little more often than we have in the past. And yeah, we had, obviously we had some tough misses, and then that stoppage time equalizer by Atlanta. It was a confusing play, in my opinion, both from the officiating side and also from what was the defense doing. Trying to play an offside trap from within the box in stoppage time while holding a lead. when you outnumber the offense, 5-2 in the box in that moment, like
Mm-hmm.
don't leave it up to fate. Just go get the guy, you know?
Right.
And I think they all expected it to be offside and got caught sleeping because of it. And whether you agree it was onside or not, that's what pro referees chose. So,
Right.
brought up a lot of conversation, as these moments do, on Twitter about the lack of goal line technology, the lack of sidelined camera angles to catch those moments
Mm-hmm.
in MLS. And, what will it take to change that? Who knows? But a 1-1 draw against Atlanta, while not good for Austin FC, won't do enough for the league to change that lack of
Exactly.
technology
Yeah.
and call those moments right. So it's a game we should have won. The defense just got caught in a moment of lapse, and it was frustrating. But I thought generally we played a good game until that moment, right? Like we
Mm-hmm.
held Atlanta to almost no opportunities in the second half, especially after getting that goal to take the lead. They were
Yeah.
almost non-existent until that final chance. So a good 90 minutes, but you got to play through the end of the whistle. So I don't know.
True that.
What were your thoughts on that game? Or you could just take it to Vancouver, whatever you're feeling.
Yeah, man. So I want to bring up just a couple of things here from Atlanta, because looking at the lineup, we see a much more aggressive, I say aggressive, but it's, just a more traditional like 4-3-3, four back. And we've got Buka lined up on the left here. And
Right.
I bring that point up because it's going to be real important for the performance against Vancouver. But we can kind of, to your point, Lobar, see that the offense is starting to gel just a little bit in terms of, Owen trying to generate passes in the final third with, Uzuni, or, Uzuni trying to play against Brandon. And I still feel like Bukhari was not necessarily the factor in that game like he would be against Vancouver. But it's just important to remember that, like, you can see Nico Estevez trying to implement just a different, style of play entirely at home for these two games. And then you can kind of hear that in his press match conference when he's talking about, why the subs came in so late. And because he felt that, we were quote unquote all over them,
Yeah.
And that's why he decided to not sub in until like the 80th minute or something like that, which goes back to the further narrative of this, highly congested schedule in May. And then I think a lot of people's fears were kind of elevated when you don't take people off until, the final 10 minutes of the game. And then you've got Vancouver, who is riding high, in the league. And we just didn't want, as a fan base, to repeat what happened in Vancouver when we lost, 5-1. So that was at least my expectation going into this match. I was like, you've heard me on the pod already before, where it was like, we can just go ahead and send them 3 points. Not a big deal. It is what it is, right? So
Right.
I was pleasantly surprised, at the performance, because I think we can all agree Bukhari was definitely the man of the match there. If it wasn't for Yohei Takaoka, the goalkeeper for Vancouver, and his awesome shot stopping, we would have surprised the league, and scored, twice, possibly 3 times against, conference leaders. And so that, in conjunction with, some inconsistent officiating for that match, it just made for 2, I would say, unfortunate performances where we definitely looked a better team than we had, in previous matches, and kind of unlucky to not get at least 3 points out of either of those, those games.
Which is surprising, looking back to our thoughts ahead of these games, right? Especially with Vancouver. You already pointed out, right? We said mail in the 3 points, we're all good. And
Mm-hmm.
It's a story of 2 draws that with different opinions, right? Atlanta, we should have won, but we expected to be in that position where we
Yep.
should have won the game, and it was a frustrating letdown. Vancouver, we did not expect to win. We didn't expect to do anything, really.
True.
And the team, especially from a team defense standpoint, like, performed valiantly.
Yeah.
They, I don't want to say that. I don't want to quote Nico Estevez in his post game presser, because I don't necessarily agree with that take. But, like,
Mm-hmm.
they didn't look like themselves, Vancouver,
Right.
right? The Vancouver we've seen in our past matchup this year, and also just in the stats, the game to game stats. There's a reason they have one loss in the season, right?
Yeah.
But I will reference that now. Nico was talking his in his bag, talking shit in the post game presser,
Yeah.
saying what like I can't remember exactly what it was, but like they weren't there, like there was no team,
Yeah. He saw
whatever
like
it
one
was.
team and all that stuff.
Yeah, I only see one team, and I didn't see them talking about Vancouver. And it's like, all right, well, not to take it literally. I know what you mean. I know what he means. But like,
Yeah.
if we're playing 11v0, we got 0 goals still, dog. So like,
Yeah.
Granted, that's because Takaoka was the one. It was 11v1 at minimum,
Yeah.
and he
Exactly.
got his saves. So I thought Bukhari, like, for all the frustration we've had all year, looking at Atlanta first, like he played okay. He had a few shots. They weren't the highest quality shots, but he created what he could in the first half. Was kind of a ghost in the second half. I think that's the nature of Estevez still trying to figure out how to balance Uzuni's touches and Bukhari's touches and have them be playmakers.
Yeah.
But in this Vancouver game, man, Bukhari was him, and he should have had a goal. And it's unfortunate, but we hope he takes that momentum and that fire and takes it into the Open Cup, takes it into other future matchups. And honestly, I think this congestion has done well for the team, man, because like there's no time to overthink. It seems like in training because you only get 1-2 training sessions before the next game,
Right.
and it's just all right. Go out there and play. Like keep it simple, stupid. What are our foundational pieces like offensive sets that we're trying to run? Just run those. We don't have time to cater in the same way we would with 6 days between games, or 6 days of training. So
Yeah.
I think it's kept things simple, and it's shown that this team is close. We're so close to cracking it open and getting those goals. And I think Bukhari will be key to that. I think he'll be key to unlocking this offense in a way we haven't seen. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I think that's all a good point, man. And I think to your, point about very close to unlocking it, I think a big piece of that is keeping, the $7 million right winger on the right side of, the attack. And I know that it's been touted that he can play, along the front three wherever, but I mean, against Vancouver, again, we're going to keep saying this because we've said it on the pod before in support of Bukhari. Like he can be that winger that Joseph Painsil type, right? Where he's just a nightmare for those fullbacks, on a 1v1 situation and getting into the box. So all that to say, I think it is going to be, I think, on an uptrend. We still have an Open Cup game to kind of throw a wrench in the plans there, so to speak. But I guess we should probably go ahead and look ahead at the Minnesota match. Yeah.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Awesome. So this is going to be a little bit tricky without the context of that Open Cup because, again, we don't know if Nico is going to fully rotate and not really respect the round of 16 match in preparation for this, or if he's just going to throw everything at Houston and maybe do the rotation on Saturday. But as of right now, since they beat us at home 3-0, Minnesota have 3 dubs in their last 4 in all competitions. And with that one loss, it just happens to come from Houston Dynamo, who we play tomorrow. And so they also have a midweek cup match against a struggling St. Louis side. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them on the heavy rotation on Wednesday with a heavy showing on Saturday. So, Lobar, how are you feeling about this one, man? And feel free to close it out with some predictions.
I think you're spot on where, if your preheated take comes true and we do start all 3 DPs, we'll likely see on the flip side, Minnesota do the same in this tournament in the midweek game, and we'll both rotate on Saturday. There might even be a handshake agreement over text, between Nico and whoever's managing Minnesota.
Eric Taylor, I think, or whatever.
Yeah, there you go. Handshake agreement, like, hey, let's both take it seriously. We'll during the midweek, and we'll rotate on Saturday, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if we see heavy rotation in this MLS matchup, for the sake of, as I was saying, as we were both predicting, like Nico going all in on the Open Cup game with 7 weeks in between the next matchup, and the schedule gets less congested through June, right? You have more time to take Saturday to play CJ Faudree to start and all those guys, and come back next week with rested legs, and play out the rest of this busy month. all I like to say though, in terms of the game state, if I don't know, I drink the Verde Kool-Aid every game. It seems like, as the lineups come out and we're seeing the pregame celebration and all that stuff. Like, I'm all the way back every time. And this Vancouver draw gives me hope that we can keep that kind of form against a good team like Minnesota. So I'm hoping that we see a similar type of performance that is the opposite of what of the result we saw last time against Minnesota, which was a blowout.
Right.
Not in our favor. And we fight valiantly on the road, and we sneak out a draw, we sneak out a point. Who knows? Yeah. Do you want me to do predictions now, or you can go first, and then we'll do predictions?
Yeah. I mean, I would just add, kind of similar to your point, where it feels like this game in particular, with a Minnesota side that is, shown that they can score multiple goals. I think the last 3 games or something like that they've scored 3+ or something. So it is definitely going to be on our defense to play like they were earlier in the season and stay cohesive when trying to figure that out. But yeah, man, I'm nervous about it because, again, I'm just looking for the return back to Q2 against an RSL side for us to really be able to put on a dominant performance. But I hope that the guys, prove us all, wrong, so to speak, where it's like they can kind of hang in. And geez, man, it would be nice to see like a Riley Thomas right about now. Wouldn't you think? Like,
hey, why not?
Give Galley a spell, because
who knows? That could even be the Dessler comeback, where he gets his first 60 minutes and it's him and Riley Thomas holding down that spot, or something like that. He's supposed to be back in the next week or so, apparently. Sure. So, but yeah, I hear that. We're like, we should see some rotation, get these other guys minutes. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, man. I don't know. Because, the season is long, but, we'll see how it goes.
We got lots of time left.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and start off with my prediction, and I'll hand it off to you, man. I've got us. I don't feel super good about this, but I think I've got a 1-2 result against Minnesota, and that'll be Minnesota winning 2-1. Sorry.
Oof. Yeah. No faith, brother.
I'm sorry, man. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm sorry.
That's fair, bro.
Yeah.
Staying on the trend that I think we're gonna see both teams rotate and yada yada yada. I think this is one of those sneaky games where we see like a Diego Rubio goal,
okay.
And we play a 5-back on defense, and we congest the box, and we stop them from taking advantage of space, like we saw in the last game. And this could be like a 1-0 win, best case scenario, 1-1 draw. They just wear us down over time and get that tie. But I think we get a point at least out of this game. So
yeah,
that's my prediction.
That's good, man. See, I feel, and I guess I should go back and say the reason I think it's going to be a draw is because I think Eric Ramsey is smart enough as a coach, and they're in good form. I don't know how well their depth is, that he's going to be willing to put some of that B squad in on Wednesday and just absolutely pummel the shit out of Austin on Saturday, dude. Like, that's just that's where I'm at, and we don't have that luxury. But we'll see how it goes, man. And then also, I wanted to take this time to also just plug the LV, full 90 club that they've got going on here. Because for folks that, might not be traveling to, Q2 on game days or want to be able to watch somewhere not at their house, you can go out to their website, and I believe losverdesatx.org. If you look at the Los Verdes Full 90 Club, it's just a group of bars and restaurants around town that have agreed to show the Austin FC matches with sound and captions on. And right now, some of those locations include Brutorium Brewery and Kitchen, Hop Squad Brewing Co., Luster Pearl, both locations east and south, Meanwhile Brewing, and then Mags all the way up north in Cedar Park. So again, check out the LV website for those options there, but really cool to see, places around town that are committed to showing the Verde Black in full audio and all that jazz.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yep. Alrighty. So let's go ahead and jump into some halftime and discuss a little bit of the rumor mill, yeah?
Yep, let's do it.
All right. So we have just a pair of items to chat about that have looked to inspire some convo around the offensive DP core of Bukhari, Uzuni, and Vasquez. The first being linked with Osman Bukhari, rumored to be open to a return to Red Star Belgrade, as his previous club is reportedly making him their top target for the summer window. Lobar, tell the people how you feel about this man.
This shit's funny, bro. Like, so on one front, like Red Star, coming back to their former player in that, and like shout out Bukhari. I have lots of faith in the guy. I think he'll put it all together in Austin and be a big key for us offensively to end the year. But I don't think he's done anything to like make them want him back so bad. Yeah. He, like, oh my God, he's cooking out there, bro. He's in form. Let's bring him back before this next UCL run, or
right.
Whatever it is. Like, I don't get it. It'd just be, seller's remorse at that point, which, fair.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll have seller's remorse when we sell one or both of Owen Wolf and Danny Pereira at some point, right? Like, it's just going to be a thing. Maybe they just need a trusted asset they think they can get for, less money than they sold him for in the first place. Who knows? Because of that low form. But from Bukhari's side, I was really happy to see him acknowledge the rumors with Alex from We Are Austin TV in the post-game presser this week. And just say like, hey man, like I see the rumors. I see what goes on. I've known nothing about that. That's between the clubs, between my agent. I haven't been told of anything. Right now I'm an Austin FC player. I have a 3-year contract, right? This is what I play for the club that I'm
right?
on.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just nailed it. That's exactly what you want to hear, especially after a strong performance against Vancouver. He obviously balled his ass off, and he knows that, right? So he's like, no, I'm here. I'm here to play for this club, and that's all I think about,
Yeah.
So shout out Bukhari for shutting that down, at least the rumor that he's a part of this in some way.
Yeah.
He's like, I know nothing about that. I'm just here to ball for my city, bro. So
yeah,
I appreciate that.
Would you have wanted him to just give an outright like denial at that point, or I feel like I'm not mad at his response, but I feel like that would have been the ultimate like, I'm Verde and Black.
Yeah, no, I hear that, and I think again he did the PR move, right? Like he may just literally not know.
Yeah,
and maybe he's flattered to see his former team still interested in him, or just it's a reminder that he has that quality to still play at a top level in Europe. And I hope that's inspiring for him. But I think he said exactly what he should have said, right? Like he doesn't know. It'd be assuming he doesn't know, like he's telling the truth. It'd be a lie for him to say that he's here forever.
Right.
All he should say is that I got a contract here and I'm going to play here. Right.
That's it.
That's not for me to decide. I know nothing. It is what it is. I'm here to ball, And so like, sure, it would have been even stauncher for him to be like, no, I'm Verde and Black. I'm not leaving. But like at the end of the day, it's not a player's game. It's a manager or it's an owner's game. So he doesn't really get a say in that.
True.
So he just knows I'm gonna play here as long as I'm here. Like I'm gonna play my ass off. So
right.
Shout out to him.
Yeah. And I think it's important to remember also this harkened like that little clip of him interviewing with Alex after the game against Vancouver. It brought back, a point that Nico Estevez had mentioned either a few weeks ago or probably like last month at this point, but talking about how as humans, these players are, still going through changes or still having to like settle in and, call me a big softy, but for whatever reason, something about seeing that exchange, and Osman kind of owning up to the fact that it's been hard for him. Yeah, man. All right. Like we've got your support. And when you put out a performance like you had against Vancouver, like you get more people on your side. And so I know that it's tough, but just know that there are people behind you and, just keep doing your thing, G. But, let's go ahead and move on to the second, topic of conversation here, which as of today, Monday morning, actually, we had a Swiss outlet Blick reporting that Austin FC has reached a verbal agreement on 25-year-old Swiss Cameroonian dual national midfielder Nicky Beloko, whose contract with FC Luzerne expires this summer. Have you had a chance to check this dude out, Lobar?
Yeah,
Or?
I watched that highlight video you sent in
Mhm.
the North Independent chat that we have going.
Yeah,
And I mean, I like what I see. There's nothing wrong. He has a quality skill set. This is my naive take, but he looks like a box to box midfielder. He can distribute. He can finish in the box. He's
Mhm.
interested in defending in the defensive third. So
Right.
he just seemed like a workhorse kind of guy, right? With a high work rate, and that's
Yeah.
good. So, but I'm a little confused on the fit for the club. Like, yes, on paper his skill set fits, but we got a lot of dudes in the midfield already that fit that kind of mold.
Hmm.
I think Owen Wolf fits that mold. Danny Pereira fits that mold. I think the idea of Savovich fits that mold.
Right.
Um, and so it's like we already got 2 to 3 guys who will hold down that double pivot or the 8 or wherever he might fit
Sure.
in the lineup, and let alone Ilie and Dubasarski. So I know we've been calling for a creative 10 to join the team, and
Yep.
I think this is a weird choice if it is a true signing. But
Right.
I wouldn't be mad at getting him. I just wouldn't really understand if we're selling somebody to get him and create space, or what the move is, or we think he can play as a 10. I don't know,
Yeah.
but he seems like a good player.
Yeah,
So
I
that's
think
good.
my only thing with him is the injury concerns,
Yeah.
because I believe that he was coming off of a ACL injury from a few months ago, or I guess it had only been a few months since he came back from that return. But
Correct. Yeah.
um, yeah, I think for me, man, it signals a couple of things. Like if we are taking this at his word, and which, by the way, it looks like the player is already, you know, made some posts on his Instagram, about coming to the U.S. and thanking the club, and following a couple of outlets here in town. So take that for what it's worth, but also it signals that like either we're not happy with one of the pieces in the midfield. So whether that's looking at like a Basard Savovich, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of folks would say that he's largely underwhelmed in his position and his time, his short time in Verde. But it's also possibly signaling that with Ilie just on the 1 year and not working out, this could be a possible supplemental situation here where if we're able to flip the green card rather quick for him,
Mm.
it might
Yeah.
bode well for the midfield. But yeah, I think I see him much more of like a CDM, so to speak. I mean, he has the option to arrive in the box based off of what we were seeing in that video. It
Yeah.
almost reminds me of kind of just like more athletic Alex Ring, almost,
Yeah. That's a
able
great way
to
to describe it. Yeah.
close it down, but also still arrive and produce some good assists and whatnot in the box. But all that to say, the rumor mill is alive and well, and so we'll do our best to continue to provide some conversation around that as it comes out. But
Yeah, man.
what we'll do is go ahead and take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be joined with Glenn Davis from Soccer Matters to preview our opening U.S. Open Cup match against Houston. So stay tight.
Sweet.
Yo, Lobar, I was looking at your memento from the game last Saturday, and that picture was fire, dude. Why don't you talk to the people and tell them about their new favorite app?
For sure, man. Memento is your sports scrapbook for Austin FC. Your games, your stats, your scores, a memento for every moment. Every memento is yours to personalize. Add your photos from Q2, tag the homies, and relive your unique experience. Every memento is packed with stats, so watch as your sports history grows as you add a memento for each game. From Austin FC to NWSL and NCAA to the Premier League, NFL, and NBA. Track your fan experience from the palm of your hand.
Help the pod out by downloading Memento today. Follow the link in our description or on our socials to start tracking your mementos. Thanks. And we're back with longtime friend of the pod and broadcaster from Houston, Texas, Glenn Davis. Glenn, glad to have you on the pod, man. How are you doing?
Gentlemen, it's always a pleasure to come on. I always enjoy soccer talk with you guys. And of course, you got a lot happening in Austin. So thanks for having me on again.
Awesome. Well, glad to hear it. And it's the reason for the season. We've got a big matchup against Houston Dynamo, and for Open Cup, knockout no less. And so let's go ahead and start with a high level overview of the Dynamo for the season. So obviously not the best start in the league, but y'all are starting to kind of catch fire here just a little bit. So I want to ask you, what's contributed to the slow start, and then also the more recent run of form that the Dynamo's got?
Yeah, I think most people will know that when you lose a Coco Carrasquilla, Hector Herrera, you lose a Mikael kind of at the last minute, although that might have been anticipated. He had a lot of interest. A left center back and Steve Clark, you've lost really a big piece of the spine of your team. So unless you replace those players with equal or better quality, it's going to be a bit of a struggle. And I think that's what we saw at the beginning of the year. I do think the one consistent struggle has been the ability to score goals. Even in the great 2023 season, the Dynamo struggled, I think, in a lot of ways to score goals, although they did get more special plays from a player like Hector Herrera.
Right.
Slow, staggering start, not the way you would want to enter MLS, but as you guys know, this is Major League Soccer. 18 teams make the playoffs. You've got plenty of time to work it out until it gets to time of consequence, which is probably somewhere in August. So, much like Austin FC, you're going to get coaches saying, look, it's a work in progress. We're trying to figure things out. It's chemistry. It's getting the guys used to the new game model. On and on. But that's MLS. And, you can't fault any of these coaches for saying this because that is the way this league operates. We're also a league where, you can't win a game in 12 and you get a coaching extension. So it's not going to happen in any other major league in the world, although to Greg Vanney's credit, he has won MLS Cups in both Toronto. But, it's different. The urgency, the consequence is very different.
Agreed.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself.
To really, I took a wayward way around this, but the Dynamo are now picking up some guys through health, a couple of other players that have been brought in, and then, of course, there's some possibilities down the road that they're, I think, very hopeful that are going to help turn it around, and they've added a second DP as well.
Right on. All good signs for Houston. Not as good for Austin, because just a few weeks ago, Houston took care of business at home against Austin in a 2-0 victory for the Dynamo. This result, unfortunately for us, kicked off a streak of poor form that Austin is still recovering from, having allowed 10 goals in their last 6, which looks a little better after the Vancouver draw, 0-0 draw, but nonetheless, that includes 2 goals scored by El Paso Locomotive in the Open Cup round of 32. So, Glenn, you spoke to some of the things that are leading to better success for Houston. How does this tournament setting change the dynamic of a derby matchup in the Austin versus Houston game?
Yeah, I think it's always a good question. I think coaches want to win these games, but they also now have to balance it with a very heavy month of May. All the teams in Major League Soccer got a boatload of games in May. I mean, look, to think you're playing 8 league games, you're really playing a large chunk of your schedule in 1 month. And in the case of the Dynamo, to finally get 2 wins in a row here, get an additional 6 points, all of a sudden, you go from 14th in the league to the positivity of being 10th in the league and scoring a few more goals. You picked off a few multi-goal games now, which never happened in the beginning. Yeah. You beat Dallas, which I didn't think was a very good Dallas, quite frankly, but you beat Dallas and you managed the game out by getting a second goal, which has always been a problem for Houston. It's usually a 1-0 game. Well, they picked off a second goal through Griffin Dorsey late in that. But I do think you're going to see a lot of mixing and matching. The Dynamo have broadened the depth of their roster now with a couple of defenders that has added to things here in Pablo Ortiz and Felipe Andrade. Right. And they kind of come through in the last couple of games, so I think they're legitimate options now. Andre Linger, I think, is a really good pickup from the Czech Republic. They played him as a striker in the last game due to the absence of the other DP, Ezequiel Ponce. The striker position for this team, I almost think from the standpoint of criteria and what you want out of it, I know this is going to sound strange, but scoring goals is not – the way this system is set up, it's very difficult on a center forward in the Dynamo game model. But back to your point, I think there'll be a lot of mixing and matching, but I think there'll be a lot of emotion, and I think it's going to be a game that Houston's going to want to get one over on Austin, and vice versa.
Yeah, and we got home field advantage this time, so fingers crossed that means anything.
By the way, you got little Patagonia empanadas in your stadium, which, by the way, are awesome. That's my friend's company in Houston.
Yeah,
they're fantastic.
Yeah.
Do you plan to be at the game on Wednesday? Just side note.
It's possible. If I tape my radio show, it's possible. But I'm giving myself away here.
Okay, fair enough.
It is possible, yes. And if so, I'll look for you guys.
Yeah, we'll find you.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, I know Nico has mentioned this earlier in the season for Austin FC fans and stuff in his press conferences, but he talks a lot about respect being earned for this team and how we still have to kind of play, these more challenging fixtures and stuff like that. So I view this as one of those really good opportunities for Austin to, knock out a Houston Dynamo that's starting to find some form. And kind of earn, quote unquote, that respect, because we've done it against Dallas in the 22 playoffs. We have the opportunity to do it now, but I want to take it back to 2023 when, Dynamo took the Open Cup to cap off a strong debut for Olsen's tenure out in Houston. And obviously in the following year in 24, Houston saw the exit, at the feet of Detroit City. And I'm just curious to know, are you seeing any similarities between the team that won it in 23 and then this year's squad looking to repeat?
Yeah, I think the way they try to play is maybe the same. Obviously, the game model, I think the Dynamo are really about a methodical build. They want to circulate the ball. They want to have the ball. They want to maintain control of games like that. I don't think they like to get into transitional type of games. Now, they do have some players in the future, like Lawrence Anali, which I think are organically going to make the Dynamo, if he comes back healthy from a knee injury. He's a German kid that briefly played for him, but he is something they need. He is a dribbler. He's a guy that eliminates people off the dribble and basically can kind of break the structure of an opponent's team.
Right.
As everybody knows, the greatest thing to break apart tactics is the individual player. And they don't have a lot of guys like him, dribblers. They didn't have a long-range finisher, which they do now have in Jack McGlynn. So they have a legitimate threat from longer range, which we saw against Dallas recently. Also a legitimate set-piece taker. There are not many American kids who are handed the playmaking role and, go out there and make the game for us type of thing in Major League Soccer, and he is. And I think for his career, this is a great move for him to have this type of responsibility because his ambition is Europe. But, he's replacing Hector Herrera. I think there are a lot of similarities in the way they want to play, certainly tempo-wise. Still a lot of their attack is based on Griffin Dorsey getting forward on the right-hand side of the field, but he generally comes a little bit later. He didn't against Dallas, which was how they punished Dallas. Right. He really actually jumped into that attack out of midfield, and it wasn't really a settled defense because Dallas at that point was pushing to try and score goals in that game. But I do think you see a lot of similarities, set pieces. Now is a big issue. You don't want to concede him against the Dynamo with Jack McGlynn standing over free kicks and stuff. So it's been exciting to watch his growth. But a lot of the main components of the game model, it really hasn't changed. I asked Dynamo's president of soccer operations, Pat Onstad, when they were struggling before these two wins. I said, hey, look, is it players? Is it the game model? Are you going to pull off the game model? Could you potentially pull off it? And they're really religiously behind this type of game model that they have.
Yeah.
There's a lot of similarities between Austin and Houston for obvious reasons, right? The U.S. men's national team, Greg Berhalter tree.
Well, that goes throughout the league in quite a lot of ways.
That's true. That's a fair point.
That is a wonderful observation.
Yeah, and the Jack McGlynn comparison, I would say, is like our Owen Wolf this year, young American kid who's giving a lot of responsibility with the ball at his feet, and he's up for the challenge. The fullbacks getting up on offense to create something that's been the story of our existence for 5 years, and it hasn't changed under Estevez. But another similarity we're seeing this year specifically is that both teams have relied on offense by committee, right? In Houston especially. I think their leading goal scorer has 3, if I'm not mistaken, and then a bunch of guys have 2 goals on the year.
Yeah, like
it goes down
11
from there.
contributors. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Glenn, who are you seeing as the difference makers on Houston that Austin will need to game plan around looking ahead to Wednesday?
The obvious one we just mentioned, I think, is Jack McGlynn. He'll get a lot of the ball. He progresses it forward. He's a set piece man. I mean, I think it's, if you play the Dynamo, and they know this, everybody knows this. We're not saying things that are revealing people's
right.
But everybody knows if you've got good free kick takers on an opponent's team, well, you want to limit silly fouls so you don't get punished. I think the Dynamo are really working hard on improving set pieces and dead ball situations in attack. I think one of the ones maybe underground for the Austin fan base is this Andre Linger.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he's got a really professional aura about him. He was less influential playing as a striker in the last game. He was kind of playing off the left prior to that, and he was given a lot of defensive responsibility, but he knows his way around the penalty area. He's got a couple of goals.
Yeah.
I think
one
he's
against Austin.
Yeah. And I think he's one really to keep an eye on, because I think there's some unrealized potential and things about him that we don't know yet, and we'll get to know more. Unless you've watched him at Slavia Prague over and over, I think we'll learn about him. I mean, I think those two are key. Obviously, everybody game plans for Dorsey joining in because he goes box to box. He's just a guy that, he might just, make another 10 to 12 runs more than any other outside back, right? And you have to match that physical nature with him.
You do.
He's gotten a little more refined in the final third. Certainly when you see his goal, you'll say that after the last game, but that was his first of the year.
Yep.
Yeah.
And outside of that, it's really business as usual. Artur in the 6, and
of course,
we'll see how many of the starters and what type of lineup Ben Olsen will put together here, because he's obviously, like everybody else, managing people's minutes.
Yeah, no, that's a good observation.
Yeah, I know that's the big thing now, right? Everyone talking about, that congestion and how we're going to manage. I know here in Austin, like that's the thing where back-to-back games against Atlanta, against Vancouver, we roll out the exact same 11 minus, one change at center back pairing. But it's going to be really interesting. Have you heard or are you noticing anything on the ground back in Houston where you feel like Ben is really targeting this matchup on Wednesday, or you feel like he's going to play a little bit more conservative because, y'all have got another game on Saturday on the bounce?
Yeah, I don't think, it depends what you mean by conservative. If conservative means, well, we're going to mix our lineup up. Yeah, I think so. I think I don't think you have any choice. I think you have to do that. Usually you pick the Open Cup to do that. But nothing's going to change. I don't think their game model changes. They take it one game at a time. They want to beat Austin. I think these are all things that are constants and are consistent. Even when they won the Open Cup, in the beginning of it, it wasn't a lot of, in my opinion, it was trying to figure out other things at that time. They got pretty fortunate against Tampa to beat Tampa, the USL team. And the USL teams are always up for these games, as you know. Yeah. I know from my playing career, and that's a long time ago, that these opponents get up and they play well and they're trying to prove themselves. It's like Inter Miami. Who doesn't want to have a good game so 25 years from now when they're talking to their kids or their grandkids, they could say, well, remember that night I played against Messi in Miami or Austin or here, and I was on the field with the greatest athlete on the planet, right? So I think they're going all out for the win. And I also think in these time periods, as these coaches know, and you guys know this, when others are given opportunity, it's their time to shine. Coaches are expecting them to prepare like first-team players, and when they get that opportunity, they expect them to produce. That's what being a professional athlete is.
Yeah. This is where the check gets earned, right?
If you're a depth player right now and you're not getting a lot of minutes, and now you're going to get some this month, well, this is your time to state your case, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Right. Well, let's get to some predictions. Yeah. Let's see who wins this game.
Let's
Glenn,
do it.
we want to start with you. What do you think the outcome is after 90 minutes or more on Wednesday?
Okay, so what happens if we're drawn? Do we go to penalty kicks?
I think we play
time,
30
then
extra,
penalties.
right?
30?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
boy, I bet they both would love 30 extra, right, in the month.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, okay. Austin's having trouble scoring goals.
Yes.
Dynamo had a leg up on them earlier in the year. I'm gonna go 2-1 Dynamo, but after extra time.
Okay.
I like that. Paul.
Yeah, I know you mentioned this already in the preheated take. I don't think we go all the way to PKs, mind you, but oh gosh, man, I think it's going to be a 2-1 Austin. I think this is where we get up for it. It's going to be tied going into the extra time, and yeah, we find a way to make some of that El Paso magic happen. So yeah, 2-1 to the good.
Hey, we're playing it safe, both of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, here.
Paul mentioned this.
I think to the main point, I think it is going to be a close game. There are two teams that, the Dynamo are going to say we're scoring goals better now, but honestly, you got one from about 33 yards out, which was an absolute blast.
Yeah.
That is your strongest card right now is Jack McGlynn. Everything's going through him.
Yeah.
Griffin Dorsey finally got a first. And then, when you're ATX, everybody's going, hey, we spent $30 million on guys who were supposed to score goals. At some point, they have to score goals. I think Bukhari is close to really breaking out. I get that sense.
Yeah, we've got to regress to the mean at some point, because we're greatly underperforming on those stats. But yeah. What about you, Lobar?
Paul mentioned that at the beginning. I called something about penalties. I think I wouldn't be surprised if this game goes to penalties. So I'm going to call it 1-1 tied after extra time, and then Austin wins 8-7 on penalties. I'll get real specific.
Oh, I like that.
I think 8-7 just sounds kind of fun and dramatic, right?
See, I think we've covered all the bases now.
We did.
Right.
Yeah, we did.
Somebody's going to be right, I think.
One of us should. I mean, at the end of the game, somebody has to win.
Probably won't be me.
We're hopeful. We're hopeful.
Right on. Well, I guess at that time, we can go ahead and head over into some stoppage time. Glenn, as always, we're happy to have you join us for these. And you kind of mentioned this earlier with Greg Vanney and the 12-game winless streak, but looks like LA Galaxy and Greg Vanney have reached a 3-year contract extension. Your thoughts on this?
Yeah, listen, Greg Vanney's put together not only a great playing career, because I called a lot of his games when he was a player, but also as a coach. He's done extremely well. He's won 2 MLS Cups, but I have to counter that with only in Major League Soccer. Can you, in a playoff system, start off and not win a game and really not be on the hot seat? And for all we know, he's probably not. Logic tells us, well, this guy should be on the hot seat, but not in a league where there is 18 teams making the playoffs. That said, they're in the hole, and they're going to have to start winning a lot of games. And if there ever was a team that now has a bit of consequence, it's them right now, based on their record.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think I'm in the same boat. It's surprising, right? All the points you mentioned, Glenn, you nailed it. A guy goes on a winless streak to start the season, and here we are, him getting paid for it. I think it's just a funny scenario of this league and the fact that there's built-in reasons and excuses already for this, right? Ricky Puig, of course, but a lot of people point at the roster realities and how teams that succeed are almost penalized for succeeding and having to reshape after winning a cup. It's what happened, right? LA lost a lot of pieces and they kept a lot around, but with Ricky Puig out for the year, is he out for the full season? Regardless, with him out for a long time, right? We're not going to see that team at full strength until probably next calendar year. So,
and you make a great point about, you don't get rewarded for winning the MLS Cup. And, what happens normally is players, if they've had a good season, they want to come in, they want more. Everybody wants more because of the success. And, some people they're gone, right?
Yeah.
Still got a budget you got to adhere to and a salary cap and all these other things. And somebody has to go.
Yeah, MLS doesn't have the same creativity as like an NBA, for example, with their salary cap and all the different qualifiers. And, if you meet these benchmarks, we can pay you more and it doesn't count again. Yeah, there's a lot of hoops that need to be provided for that success to be rewarded. So looking at rivalry week, right? Rivalry weekend. Some of the highlights: Orlando will enter Miami, Toronto trounced Montreal, New England holds San Jose scoreless in the Bruce Arena Bowl. Glenn, what were your takeaways from this weekend or this past weekend?
Yeah, so what did I look at? I've been looking at Inter Miami a little bit. A lot of big struggles there. I mean, there's another team that's lost, I think, some key pieces.
Yep.
Look, Suarez, Busquets, people do have a shelf life. It can't go on forever. What they did breaking into the league and in the League's Cup and to generate the excitement, yes. But they've got real problems right now. They're not holding on to the ball as well as they used to.
Yeah.
And when they don't have the ball, they're not very good defending, transitional moments in soccer. I mean, we saw that even when they were winning all those games. So
right.
One to keep an eye on. We're starting to see some frustration from Leo Messi. And like I said before, they get everybody's best, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, Minnesota knocked them off 4-1. They were in la land, and they came to Houston, and I believe, to me, it was an unprofessional performance they put on the field in Houston. They did not look like they wanted to be here. They brought on their big guns in the second half, Lud and some of the other strikers that caused a lot of problems. These guys did not look like they cared to be in Houston. So I found that very, very interesting. And then, of course, they win this weekend in rivalry weekend. So, go figure. It's such a hard league to predict. But Orlando's win, don't take anything away from them. That's a very, very big win for them. And Inter Miami can be a fulcrum for motivation and platforming a season.
Yeah.
Paul, you?
Yeah, I think for me, man, it's got to be up in Canada. Toronto, like who called them out of nowhere, just putting 6 past Montreal? Unfortunately for them, it's looking pretty bad. And it's starting to be kind of the norm up there for Montreal. But I think I saw a stat somewhere where this week looked to be the lowest across the league in terms of XG, just as a result of the schedule congestion and all these players going back to back. But Toronto was able to just pull out Bernadeschi brace and just put 6 on the team. So that was kind of wild.
Yeah.
Looking ahead, we've got Gold Cup preliminary rosters dropping, and it looks like Vasquez, is on there for the U.S., and we've got Julio Cascante in the mix as well for Costa Rica. It looks like the rosters will be finalized closer, to June, and we've also got Alexander Svatok on reserve call-up duty for the Ukraine. Glenn, your thoughts on these 40, 60-man rosters dropping right now?
Well, they're always exciting because there's 40 or 60 men on them. There's some names you don't know. There's a few names there that'll be a bit of a, hey, who is that for U.S. national team fans? I haven't looked at it yet, so I have to be honest with you. I haven't looked at the U.S. But what I can say about the Gold Cup, and Houston will have the Gold Cup final here, which is the first time ever, which really adds to a lot of the great international soccer content that has come through this state or this city, and which basically helped us garner, along with an amazing soccer community, World Cup matches.
Right.
But I love the Gold Cup because there's all these really unique stories. I think you'll look at a place like Curacao, who's got a legendary coach, Dick Advocat, and you'll find some very good Dutch players that'll make that roster that would not make the Netherlands. So I think if you do deep dives on CONCACAF, you can come up with a lot of really interesting stuff. So I'm looking forward to the Gold Cup for sure, and I'm glad the finals here in Houston because I plan on being at it.
That's fun. Awesome. Do you get to work that at all? The Gold Cup finals?
Don't know, but I'll definitely be covering it for radio. A lot of my TV stuff from the standpoint of Gold Cups and World Cups in the last few years and in the recent times. A lot of that's going away from me, but there's other things I'm doing.
Yeah, you'll be busy either way.
Yeah.
How about you, Lobar?
Yeah, from the Austin perspective, I mean, this is the double-edged sword that is international call-ups, right? With a limited roster, your top guys, if anyone's going to be called up, it's going to be your top guys, right? And for us, that's two of our center backs. That's Brandon Vasquez, and we're already pretty thin at both positions, striker and center back, in terms of contributors at least. So it's going to be a Heinz Ike party with probably a Austin FC2 guy getting called up and Diego Rubio taking over the reins, MLS legend, see if he can pull something out for us during that break. But that's with the assumption that we have games during that. I don't even know if we do, but regardless, it's good for the guys. Bad for Austin if we have games to play during that break. So, looking internationally, we have a couple domestic cup finals to cover here. Crystal Palace defeated Manchester United in the FA Cup final.
City,
and Bologna,
I believe.
I'm sorry, yes, City. Thank you. Yeah. Manchester City. Mistyped it in here. They beat City. We like to see that. Mm-hmm. And then Bologna beat AC Milan in the Coppa Italia final. Glenn, do you keep up with the European finals?
Oh, yeah. I keep up with the international game for sure. I watched the FA Cup Crystal Palace game. It's the first, it's like 64 years or 46 years they haven't won a trophy.
Yeah.
You're listening to these older guys that are just emotionally, in this place of ecstasy. But great storyline in the Crystal Palace win over City was Chris Richards.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Richards was discovered in Alabama by Eric Quill, who's a former Houston youth player and MLS player who's now currently the coach of FC Dallas. Yep. He brought Chris Richards to Houston to get him better competition at a youth club called the Texans. And after a year there, he told me, he just said, look, it's just way above it. He has to get into a more competitive environment. And he had the choice of moving him and helping him move to either Houston or Dallas. And at that time, he picked Dallas. And then, of course, the rest is history. Yeah. But to see an American from Alabama on the field winning an FA Cup in a moment like that, to me, is really a remarkable moment. And, of course, my time, basically was I got to train one off season at Sheffield United, right? Like to see U.S. players on clubs like Juventus, Chelsea, and all this, it really is pretty remarkable. So it was great to see Chris Richards be a part of that. And I think Matt Turner's the backup goalkeeper on that team too.
Yep.
Yeah. It's good perspective. That's good perspective to share. Paul.
Yeah. No, I think going back to the U.S. soccer player, highlight there for Chris and for Matt, I think that's just one of those things that it's really cool to see, especially on a club like Crystal Palace that, they've even joked themselves about kind of retaining their 12th place spot, but still somehow able to edge out Pep Guardiola's men for the FA Cup. That's the magic of these competitions like that. And so you love to see it. I know we mentioned, for leagues correspondence when we cover Serie A, AC Milan, with the powerhouses that, they have with, Christian Pulisic and what have you, to not be able to lift this bit of a unfortunate circumstance, to miss out on European football. They're down bad over there, but, it is what it is.
Yep.
Looking closer to home in the WPSL semi-pro, we have Austin Rise winning their home opener off a long-range deflected shot from Vicky Luxinger. Glenn, quick question: Do you have any of the WPSL clubs out there in Houston that you check out, or?
So I keep an eye on the Houston Dash, obviously. If I go back in my broadcasting career, I was calling college soccer at a time where, coaches from a college team would call me and say, hey, I just need, some girls that have athletic ability and I have a full scholarship for them. I mean, it's crazy. So it's crazy to watch the development of the women's game and where it's come and where it's gone from. So I can't say I've watched the Austin team. Mm-hmm. What I can say is our team here in Houston has had real struggles. I would think Austin would be a spectacular environment for women's soccer.
Yeah.
With your built-in fan base, I think a lot of that might transfer over to it. Mm-hmm. I love the women's game. I love how much better it's gotten.
Yep.
I love the athleticism of it. I have tuned into some Serie A women's games, and technically, 1 through 11 is usually really good and maybe even better
Yeah.
than we see here in America. Athletically, maybe not the same. So,
Right.
all great stuff. The team here in Houston should be far more integrated into the community. It's not. I've got thoughts on that. I'm going to keep them to myself right now.
Fair enough.
But we have heard people say, "Oh, they ought to move the Houston team to Austin." So I've heard that. I speak truth here. I'm not coming on here to smoke and mirrors people. I'm speaking truth. So we have heard that doesn't actually not make sense. Okay, in some ways.
Yeah. Lobar, how about you, man?
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to go. I know, Paul, you and Kate were there at House Park yesterday. But I'm excited to catch some games this season. I think, did they go through late June? Is that when it ends? Or
yeah, just toward the end of June is when that wraps up.
So it's a quick season. It's 7 weeks. They get all these games in. And so if you're not paying attention, it's easy to miss. So I'm glad that they get a win on their opener, keep that momentum, right? They have a lot of good things happening this year. Or coming into this season with, the reclassification into the WPSL, the TST involvement, the soccer tournament involvement, and all that. So glad to see that they stay in their generally winning ways, and I'm excited to see some games
for sure.
Chelsea earned a big 3 points. Looking over at our Chelsea Blues, they earned a big 3 points in the penultimate game of the season to stay in Champions League contention. All eyes are on the season finale at Nottingham Forest. Glenn, have you kept up with the Champions League race or the end of the Premier League race?
I haven't looked at the table, but I very much was pulling for Nottingham Forest because to me it was the story of the year.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah, sorry, I know you guys are Chelsea fans, but to me it was an amazing story based on the fact that they were one place away from relegation last year.
Yeah.
I had Sarah Clapson, who's their beat writer, on a lot. Last year we were just talking about survival and when Gio Reyna went there and how that was a weird fit. And, to see what they did this year and be in the fight for Champions League. I don't know if I think they're still in it.
They are.
They are, yeah.
Yeah, they're just a point behind Chelsea. So this is kind of like a winner-take-all almost. Like whoever wins this could potentially qualify.
Is that at Chelsea or Forest?
That's at Forest. It's at the City Ground. And I think Chelsea have not won on the road but once in 2025. Is that right, Lobar?
Yeah, something like that.
Their road form has been bad. So this is going to be a nail-biter for sure.
And this is why we love promotion and relegation.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it'll be a fun game. Paul, anything else to add there?
Yeah, I mean, to Glenn's point about promotion, relegation, and just the drama behind it all, it's crazy to look at this table and see 3 teams tied at 66 points, and then you got a point between 3rd and 7th place. It's just it's bonkers, and it's going to be down to the wire. But we'll be watching and I've got faith in our strikerless team to figure it out. Yeah.
You gotta grab that European money.
You've got to. Yeah. It's been a long time since we haven't had it really like that. But yeah. And then all that to say, there is one team that is absolutely dominant over there in London, and that is Chelsea Women's with the 6th straight WSL title. They complete the domestic treble under, first year. I say first year at Chelsea, head coach, Sonia Bonpastor. Glenn, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think what's fascinating, and I can't really speak that much to Chelsea. I know how good of the ladies program they have, and I do know the growth. These big brands, they want to put out good teams, and the big brands are going to certainly push to continue to move the women's game forward and take it very, very seriously. You don't have the top and bottom parity you do in the NWSL, but you do have people that are going to be able to offer people better contracts at times.
True.
Less stipulations. This is why Lexi Misumo, the former Texas player, is playing for Dallas because you didn't want to get locked in. This is my take. I think she didn't want to get locked into a longer-term contract in the NWSL and wants to have the ability to go overseas. So We're seeing some pretty amazing stuff from that standpoint. We've had some signings over there that have tipped the scale of bigger money. So that to me is the real story. Going from a place in 99 where that 99 women's team basically showed the world that you could compete as a female, do it in a great way. It influenced and accelerated the development of women's national teams around the world in countries where it was very much frowned upon for women to even play sports. We fast forward to now, and it's pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
Great point.
Here.
Speaking of the contracts and the competitiveness between NWSL and WSL in terms of, money spent. I mean, Naomi Girma is on that Chelsea team. She broke the record, I think $1.1 million transfer fee. Was that the first $1 million fee ever?
I think so. Yeah.
So to that point, Chelsea has their hand in that development and bringing in.
Remember Julia Grosso, after scoring the winning goal in the Olympics, left UT and she went to Juventus.
Right?
She's back now, but
Chicago. Yep.
Yeah. So you got a lot of great women's connection right there in Austin with UT, and
great program.
I spent a lot of years on Longhorn Network before it went away, calling their games, and I loved going up there, calling their games and learning about those players. We have Abby Smith now, who's been in goal lately for the Houston Dash. So there's tremendous opportunity for ladies now.
Yeah, it's true. To that point, shout out Chelsea Women's. They did what we expected, held it down for year 6. So let's get one more. I think Sonia's going to carry the team on and continue that world-class pedigree that we saw under Emma. So, Yep.
Sounds good. Well, that about wraps it up for stoppage time. And as always, we appreciate y'all kicking it with us on this week's episode of the Verdependent podcast. I'm Paul Fletes. You can catch me on Twitter at PaulAndrewFC. That's a government name.
That's a government name. It is indeed. And I'm Logan Bartlett. You can find me at Lobar VHLM.
And Glenn, thank you again so much for joining us this week. Why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you and tune into Soccer Matters?
Yeah, every Tuesday and Wednesday, 6:00 Central Time. By the way, it's we'll talk Austin FC on there. You guys are going to come on the program. It's general sports, not sports, but soccer program.
Yeah.
Of course, it covers MLS. So it's every Tuesday and Wednesday, 6:00 Central Time. You can hit me up on Twitter and Instagram at Glenn Davis Sock.
Awesome. And as always, y'all keep the chatter going online by following at the Verdependent on socials. And before we leave, we just want to remind you, if you haven't done so already, to please consider subscribing to the Verdependent podcast and leaving a review wherever you listen to us, and share these episodes with your Verde loving friends. That is an episode, y'all. Peace.
Peace, y'all. Oh, why are you screaming at me?
Oh my God.